A lot of people want to know what are the safest and conversely the most dangerous anabolic drugs available. You can go on the internet, and there's numerous blogs on YouTube. There's dozens of videos. A lot of this material pertaining to anabolic steroid cycles and all that stuff, they're made by people that claim to have all the answers. They will outline these supposedly scientifically based anabolic steroid and growth hormone cycles that are purported to put on 20 pounds of muscle here, and if you do it, and you could be a pro bodybuilder and Mr. Olympia. That's all a bunch of crap, because most of these guys, if you really look close at them, they're selling something. The videos are just a come on for you to sign up with them, where they offer you more precise steroid cycles at quite a bit of cost. They're not giving away anything for free. The videos that you see here on my channel are free. These guys are just to come on. They give you bits of information. In fact, some of it's pretty exasperating, because you'll see, what do they call it, clickbait video that'll say the best steroid. And then the guy will talk for a half hour about general information, and at the end of it, he invites you to join his private web page, where you probably will get the answer to the original question. In the meantime, you've wasted a half hour because you were suckered into believing that you were going to get solid information. So let me at the start point out that there's no such thing as an ideal steroid or anabolic drug cycle. That's bullshit. There's nothing in science that proves that. People respond to drug cycles and individual drugs individually. A lot of it has to do with biochemical differences and genetic difference in people's bodies. Some people respond extremely well to, for example, to various anabolic steroids. Others, I'm not going to say they don't make any progress, but they make surprisingly little progress, even if they duplicate the so-called steroid cycles of the champions. In other words, if you follow Mr. Olympia's precise anabolic steroid program, or whatever drug program he uses, the notion that using that program will make you look anything even close to the way Mr. Olympia looks is just infinitesimally small and not likely. Again, you might make some progress in certain ways, but duplicating somebody else's steroid cycle is not going to make you look like them. That is a myth, and that's complete nonsense. So that's the first myth I want to get out of the way. The second myth is that steroids, they're all safe, and they're all, there's all the so-called dangers of anabolic steroids and growth hormone and various other anabolic steroids have been overemphasized, and this and that, and they're trying to scare you and all that. That's garbage. Again, garbage. Ask any pharmacologist, anybody who anybody who really knows about drugs. They will tell you that if a drug doesn't have side effects, it simply doesn't work. What determines what's going to happen when you use any particular drug has to do with dose and time. In other words, how much of the drug you use and how long you use it. The greater the doses of drugs that you use, and the longer you use them, the greater the chances and the more likelihood of possibly serious side effects. I'm not going to go into all the possible side effects associated with anabolic steroids, but suffice to say, the systems of the body that are hit the hardest when you take large doses of these drugs involve the cardiovascular system and the liver, and secondarily the kidneys. Those are the three organs hit hardest. I'd also throw in number 4, meaning the brain, which is a more subtle effect, but that has to do with long-term usage of certain steroids, which I'll get to in a minute. But in other words, there's no way of taking steroids, especially in large amounts, without experiencing some side effects. Are some steroids, anabolic steroids, now steroids, by the way, means derived from cholesterol. It's a general term. Cortisol is a steroid, vitamin D is a steroid. In this video, when I use the word steroid, I'm referring to anabolic steroids. including testosterone. Anyway, steroids are basically what was I going to say? I got off track there. The notion that they don't cause side effects is nonsense. Again, what I was trying to say is, are some steroids more safe than others in the sense that they're less likely to cause more immediate side effects? Yes, that is true, generally speaking. However, due to individual idiosyncrasies, even so-called safe steroids can create problems right from the get-go, right from the bat. It depends on a person's physiology. The notion that some steroids are safe, so safe that a 4-year-old child can take it, is just laughable nonsense. I don't know where they get this crap from. But for example, just to give you an example off the top of my head, you take women, for example. A lot of women have approached me. They want to know what's the safest steroid they can take, because they want to lose body fat. They have this idea that taking steroids will help them lose body fat, make them look a little bit more athletic looking. They've heard rumors that so-called safe steroids like Anavar, Winstrol would be okay for them to use, possibly even Deca. What I tell them is, as soon as you take any dose of any anabolic steroid, you're already taking a high dose if you're a woman, simply because of the fact that a woman naturally only produces 1/10 as much testosterone as a man. So even if she takes one tablet of Anavar, which is considered one of the safer steroids, she's already taking basically a large dose of a testosterone derivative. So, depending again on how long she takes it, she could experience what they call androgenic side effects, such as a thickening of the vocal cords, which gives you this kind of deep voice, enlargement of the sexual organs, acne, male pattern baldness, so on and so forth. So again, the idea that all steroids are safe is nonsense. The second, the other side of the coin, are some steroids more dangerous than others? Definitely. There's no question about it. This is not only reflected in medical studies, but also in real-world experiences. I've known and interviewed literally hundreds of bodybuilders who've used all types of steroids. I've heard what happens to them when they've off the record. Some of these bodybuilders, some of these elite professional bodybuilders, have met with me and discussed steroids that they've experienced when they've taken. Side effects they've experienced when they've taken certain steroids, and certain steroids tend to stand out as causing a greater rate of side effects in the majority of those who use them. So let's first talk about here, with all that in mind, let's first talk about some of the safer steroids. The first one that comes to mind is testosterone itself. Testosterone is, of course, the native androgen or endogenous androgen produced in a man's body. You should know that this might surprise some of you, but the average man produces anywhere from 9 to 11 milligrams of testosterone a day. I'll repeat, 9 to 11 milligrams of testosterone a day. Testosterone is synthesized from cholesterol. It's delivered to the. It's made in the testes, the Leydig cells of the testes, also in the adrenal glands. The cholesterol that is used for testosterone synthesis is carried to the testes by way of low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, which some people call the bad cholesterol. But if you got rid of all the LDL, there wouldn't be any testosterone made in the body, so I wouldn't call it the bad cholesterol. But the point being that the endogenous androgen is testosterone, and you produce, again, 9 to 11 milligrams. Now keep that in mind when you think about some of these cycles that you hear about on the internet or in videos where they're talking about taking 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 milligrams of testosterone. Think about it. Your body was made to handle 9 to 11 milligrams. Now, what's going on in these people who take 5,000 milligrams or more a week? Okay, the first thing that you should know is when you take large amounts, it does stimulate the opening up of new androgen receptors to accommodate the greater amount of testosterone. but it doesn't mean that all that testosterone is being used. A large part of it is broken down. A lot of the testosterone is converted into a testosterone byproduct called dihydrotestosterone, DHT. Many of the side effects that are attributed to testosterone are actually caused by dihydrotestosterone, which interestingly has 5 times greater affinity to bind with androgen receptors than testosterone itself. It's very androgenic, in other words. However, the steroid in muscle that produces muscle gains is not dihydrotestosterone because it's destroyed by enzymes before it can get into the muscle. The anabolic steroid for muscle is testosterone. The side effects, some side effects often attributed to testosterone, such as male pattern baldness, increased acne, and also possible prostate problems. All of this comes from dihydrotestosterone rather than testosterone. An interesting thing about testosterone is that if you take, let's say, a safe range of testosterone, it won't adversely affect blood lipids such as high-density lipoprotein and total cholesterol. And the reason for that is about 8 to 10% of testosterone produced in the body is converted into estrogen, and estrogen in small amounts in men is cardioprotective. It tends to increase the suppleness of arteries. It prevents stiffening of arteries, which is a forerunner of atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease. And also, estrogen also helps to maintain protective high-density lipoprotein cholesterol. However, a lot of bodybuilders and athletes who use large doses of testosterone are aware that it is converted, some of it's converted into estrogen, and they don't want estrogen side effects, which include gynecomastia or formation of male breasts, increased fat deposition under the skin, and so on and so forth. So they use what they call estrogen blockers or inhibitors. An example of that is Navadex. Navadex works by being structurally similar to estrogen, and by doing so, it can basically interact with estrogen receptors and block them. So even if your body's producing more estrogen, the estrogen can't bind with its receptor because of Navadex, and the estrogen doesn't do anything. The more common way to block estrogen is inhibitors such as Arimidex or anastrozole, which works by inhibiting the aromatase enzyme that converts androgens such as testosterone into estrogen. I'm not going to get into all the basis of these estrogen blockers. I just want to point out that testosterone itself is fairly safe because of the fact that some of it is turned into estrogen, but some of it's also turned into dihydrotestosterone. There's ways to block that too, such as drugs that block the 5-alpha reductase enzyme, which converts testosterone into DHT. Examples of that are finasteride or Proscar, Propecia. Some people have problems with those drugs, but there's no free ride. But generally speaking, let's put it this way: the amount of testosterone that's normally prescribed for testosterone replacement therapy, in other words, men who are diagnosed through blood testing as being deficient in testosterone, usually requires 3 blood tests to ascertain that. A lot of doctors will prescribe fairly low doses of testosterone. Usually it's in a cream or gel form, which raises testosterone levels to about 500. The scale of testosterone is 300 to 1,000. 500's midpoint, that's the goal of those. However, the only way to get super physiological levels of testosterone, which are more suitable for, let's say, bodybuilding, would be the injectable forms such as ananthate and cypionate. Now, testosterone, what else can I say about testosterone? So testosterone, like I say, an injectable form, and if it's conservative doses, it's pretty safe. Some men have used testosterone for as long as 20, 30 years. They don't show any particular adverse effects. However, if you have the genetics for male pattern baldness and you don't take a 5-alpha reductase blocking drug like Propecia, you will lose your hair when you take testosterone. And even low doses can cause acne. So those are probably the worst. As far as the prostate cancer, that's really that's kind of a myth also. I'm not going to get into the reasons why. I've discussed that in my Applied Metabolics newsletter in depth. Suffice to say that the notion that testosterone causes prostate cancer is not true. So testosterone is one of the safer anabolic steroids. As far as orals go, an oral anabolic steroid with a big safety reputation is oxandrolone, now sold as oxandrin. It used to be called Anavar. It was very popular with bodybuilders for years, but the idea is that it somehow has a high anabolic to androgenic ratio, and some people say it's safe. It's so safe that children and women could take it without any serious problems. But the problem is that Anavar, like all oral anabolic steroids, is a structurally manipulated form of testosterone, meaning it has been structurally manipulated to resist premature breakdown in the liver. Normally, if you take testosterone orally, most of it's broken down in the liver. It doesn't have much biological activity. What they did with anabolic steroids is manipulate the structure so that it's not rapidly broken down in the liver, but this can cause an accumulation of the drug in the liver, which can cause a swelling of the liver known as chemical hepatitis. That can cause problems such as cholestasis or interference with bile circulation. In a worst case scenario, it can, if the oral steroids build up in the liver, it can cause breakdown of the liver cells, which can lead to serious liver complications such as cirrhosis, pileosis hepatis, possible liver failure, liver cancer. That usually takes a long time, and it's more associated with high doses. But is Anavar, the way it's portrayed, it makes it seem like it's as safe as candy. That's not true. That's not true. There's no such thing. Studies show that taking 20 milligrams of now the average dose of Anavar for bodybuilding purposes is 20 milligrams a day. A study showed that taking 20 milligrams of Anavar a day for 12 weeks reduced protective levels of high-density lipoprotein, which helps protect against cardiovascular disease. It lowered it by 30%. Then that's with a conservative dose. Now, if you raise the dose of Anavar to 80 milligrams, the levels of HDL drop 50%. Now, I've seen blood tests of bodybuilders who've taken, not just Anavar, but they've taken several orals and injectables. They showed me their blood tests, and their HDL was it was undetectable. There was no HDL at all. It was below 5 milligrams. Now, that would normally be considered very serious as a forerunner of cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, strokes. The good news is that they also showed extremely low total cholesterol, probably because of the low body fat levels and because they weren't eating a lot of sugar and a lot of fat. They usually had total cholesterol of below 150. However, their LDL cholesterol was a little elevated too, sometimes as high as 200 or more, which is not good because the steroids also elevate low-density lipoprotein, which when oxidized is associated with cardiovascular disease. The good thing about Anavar is because it's a DHT-based steroid, it's not converted into estrogen, so there's no estrogen effect. All oral steroids can your body can detect when you're taking steroids, whether it's injectable or oral, and even the so-called safe oral steroids, there's a feedback mechanism to the pituitary gland. So when you take an oral steroid, your natural production of testosterone is reduced. In the case of Anavar, studies show that testosterone levels drop by 45% after 12 weeks of usage of Anavar. Now, if you take the famous drug Dianabol, which was one of the original oral steroids, just 15 milligrams of Dianabol taken for 2 months lowers testosterone by 69%. Okay, so Anavar, you could say in low amounts, comparatively speaking, is one of the safer oral steroids. To say it's completely safe is nonsensical for the reasons I said. Winstrol is also considered a fairly safe anabolic steroid. The oral form, however, is toxic to the liver, especially in larger doses. A lot of bodybuilders take the veterinary form, which an injectable form of Winstrol, which is called Winstrol V. which they think is safer because injectables supposedly bypass the liver, but you get the same effects on blood lipids with Winstrol V as you do with taking the oral Winstrol. Another injectable steroid with a reputation for safety is Deca, which is a form of nandrolone, 19-nortestosterone chemically. Deca lowers HDL by 26% after 10 weeks of use. It can also cause something idiomatically called Deca-Dick, because not a referral to Richard Nixon, but rather an adverse effect on sexual function. It can cause a loss of sex drive and a loss of possibly even erectile dysfunction. This has been traced to a progesterone-like effect induced by Deca, also by the fact that Deca tends to increase a hormone called prolactin, which in larger amounts is strongly associated with impotence in men. A lot of bodybuilders try to circumvent this sexual effect of Deca by taking a prolactin blocking drug such as cabergoline, which will effectively lower prolactin. And I should tell you that another reason that Deca interferes with sexual function is it tends to inhibit nitric oxide production locally in the erectile tissues of the penis. Drugs such as Viagra work by increasing nitric oxide. So you could say that Deca works in opposite to Viagra. Of course, a lot of the side effects depend on the dosage. If you take moderate doses, 100 milligrams of Deca, possibly up to 200, the likelihood of side effects is lessened. I've seen videos where these schmucks tell people to take 2,000 milligrams a week of Deca and they'll have no side effects. Nonsense. You should also know that rat studies show that large amounts of Deca are extremely toxic to the neurons in the rat brain. Whether this happens in humans hasn't been shown, because they'd have to take out somebody's brain, and most people aren't amenable to that. Of course, some people have no brains at all, so there'd be no problem. These are usually Republicans. Well, anyway, but the point being that Deca theoretically could be bad for the brain. Deca also has a reputation of not being very estrogenic, but 20% of it is converted into estrogen. So again, the larger the dose you take of Deca, the greater the production of estrogen. 100 milligrams of Deca will lower the natural production of testosterone an average of 57%. Another drug, this was a favorite drug of Arnold Schwarzenegger. This was called Primobolan. And Primobolan came in two forms, the acetate form, which was oral, and Primobolan Depot, which was an injectable. Arnold favored the Primobolan Depot, which had a good reputation of being a so-called cutting and hardening drug. It's a DHT-based drug, which means it can cause DHT side effects such as male pattern baldness, acne, again, possible prostate problems. But the good thing about Parabolan, the reason why it was probably popular, Parabolan, no, that's another drug. I'm talking about Primobolan. The reason it was popular was because it didn't convert into estrogen, and as a consequence, there was very little water retention. Well, theoretically, it's safer than some other steroids. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to just briefly talk about the more dangerous steroids. The dangerous steroids are orally Anadrol 50. Anadrol 50 is extremely toxic to the liver. As a matter of fact, empirical evidence, in other words, evidence of those who used Anadrol 50 show it starts to cause severe liver problems in just 4 to 6 weeks after continuous usage. Anadrol 50 has a reputation of making you very strong and making you thicker muscles, but Anadrol 50, I personally think it should be avoided. It's extremely toxic to the liver. So I know this is going to fall on deaf ears, because some people, hear about the size and strength effects of Anadrol. They're going to take it. All I can tell you is you better monitor your liver. You better, go to a doctor, have lab tests done for a liver panel. If your liver enzymes are going up after about 3 weeks, get off Anadrol, or else you're asking for trouble. I think probably the dirtiest steroid available, and again, this is going to get a lot of flack, I know, probably get some bad comments, but I'm going to tell it as it is. Trenbolone. Trenbolone is a powerful steroid, probably one of the most potent and popular steroids. But you should know that the pharmaceutical company that produces Trenbolone stopped producing it in 1997. What that means is the only Trenbolone available is through black market sources. And I should tell you, I've come across a number of studies where they've seized they've raided, various underground drug companies or whatever. They've seized the drugs. They've analyzed the drugs. About 50% of the drugs analyzed, steroids I'm talking about, turn out to contain either no steroids, mislabeled steroids, or the steroids themselves contain toxic substances such as heavy metals. In fact, there's a case on record of a 30-year-old Australian male bodybuilder who bought Trenbolone off a black market steroid site, and he died because it turned out that the Trenbolone unfortunately was contaminated with enough arsenic to kill him. So, a Trenbolone is extremely dangerous. The reason why I consider it a really dirty steroid is the fact that several animal studies have shown that Trenbolone promotes an increase in the brain of the same proteins that are associated with Alzheimer's disease and brain degeneration, specifically tau and beta amyloid 42. Animal studies show that Trenbolone greatly increases the production of these abnormal brain proteins. What this means in practical terms, I'm not saying if a person takes Trenbolone, they're immediately going to get Alzheimer's, but somebody who uses Trenbolone for a good amount of time, year after year, even if you're young, by the time you're 40 or 50, you're going to start showing brain problems because it's going to cause, again, based on the animal studies, there's no human evidence yet, but the same proteins exist in the human brain. I suspect that these people are going to show probably premature Alzheimer's disease or something like that. Trenbolone is a dirty steroid that should never be used. Another one that was popular with bodybuilders, especially years ago, was halotestin. Halotestin is a steroid that has a reputation as a cutting drug. There's rumors it's a certain Mr. Olympia favorite. I'm not going to mention his names. I don't want to embarrass him. It was used by several top bodybuilders. In fact, it was even used by President John F. Kennedy, who was prescribed halotestin to counter the effects of the cortisol drugs he had to take because of his Addison's disease. Addison's disease is a disease marked by a complete lack of adrenal steroid production, and you have to take supplemental hormones, including cortisol. Cortisol, of course, can cause side effects. So the doctor who treated JFK prescribed halotestin. So you could say, and also JFK also took a form of testosterone propionate. So the great John F. Kennedy was on anabolic steroids. A lot of people don't know that. That's probably why he recently came back to life, from what I understand, and he's going to be running as the running mate for Donald Trump when he makes his bid for the presidency in 2024. I'm sure that JFK's use of anabolic steroids allowed him to literally come back from the dead. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the steroids, I mean, this has gone a little long, so I'm gonna end it now. But I hope you got some good information. I just leave you with this notion that be careful of these YouTube videos and these websites and blogs that give you information about steroids, because just remember, contrary to what they may say, and a lot of these guys, they speak technical talk, they seem to know what they're talking about. They don't. They might have some basic information about steroid mechanisms, but when they start to give out precise dosages, take this cycle to get big, take this cycle to get cut, that's BS. That's bullshit. Don't believe it. Everybody's going to respond differently to these cycles, and you might be just one of those unlucky people to get, unfortunately, very sick from using them. So you have fair warning. If you want more information, if you want more information about nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, effective fat loss techniques, ergogenic aids, hormonal therapy, women's health and fitness, supplement science, which supplements work, which ones don't, subscribe today to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. It's 30 to 50 pages every month, no ads. It's like getting a monthly ebook. Solid evidence-based information that includes my nearly 60 years of empirical knowledge and experience. I've been in the trenches. I know what works and what doesn't work. When you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on exercise science, nutrition, and general medicine. Oh, by the way, a lot of people wonder why I don't look directly in the camera. I can't. It's hard to explain, but I'm not looking at anything. Like right now, I'm looking at a blank screen. But for some reason, when I look at the camera, it like messes up my train of thought. I can actually think clearer by looking at nothing. So that answers your why. In other words, when I look at the camera like this, it's harder for me to think. So in case you're wondering why I seem to be not looking at the camera, this is the reason why. But anyway, subscribe to my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter and adopt a dog. They are the best, the best. And by the way, there is a drug that can extend your dog's life. I'll probably talk, if you're interested, leave a comment below. I'll talk about it in a future video. This particular drug will make your dog of any breed live up to 3 to 4 years longer. So take care. Go to your local shelter. Adopt that dog. You'll never have a better friend. They're loyal to you. When everybody turns their back on you, the dogs will still be there. I know that from experience. Take care.